Well known for their classic toy lines like Barbies and Hot Wheels, Mattel had some success with their Intellivision, a direct competitor to the Atari 2600, by focusing on a niche of targeting older adults with primarily sports games. Although we know now that the North American video game industry was approaching doomsday in 1983, Mattel could have never guessed that, and by 1982 planned to use their experience with the Intellivision to springboard themselves into selling real computers, much like their competitor Atari had done 4 years previously, and their other opponent, Coleco, was doing at the same time. Let's find out how Mattel's first computer fared in an industry that was very quickly getting crowded. Hi, I'm Jacob with Tech Retrospective. Let's take a look at the Mattel Aquarius. The idea for the Aquarius came about in the early 1980s when Mattel wanted to capitalize on the somewhat new market for small, consumer-based computer systems. The device itself was designed and built by Radofin Electronics Limited, which was a London-based company that had already designed the Intellivision in 1979. The plan was to release a low-end system costing much less than the competition to attract novice computer users and parents buying a computer for their kids that could then be expanded as the user's experience in computer literacy increased. On paper, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. There was certainly a ton of demand for a low-cost computer in '82, with other companies trying to fill the void, like Sinclair with the ZX81, Commodore with the VIC-20, and others. And there lies the heart of the problem. If you don't know, when it was released in 1983, the Mattel Aquarius was a colossal failure. A company known for their successful video game consoles entering the video game industry in 1983 with a product doomed for failure? Now, why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, the Coleco Atom. Now, both the Atom and the Aquarius failed in 1983, but for very different reasons. I don't want to go into specific detail on why the Atom failed, since I already did a convenient, in-depth 15-minute video on that very subject, but in short, the Atom failed due to its terrible quality control issues and design problems, paired with not living up to the immeasurable amount of hype placed on it by the computer industry. The failure of the Atom would eventually cause Coleco to go bankrupt. This was because Coleco put their entire company behind it, putting all their eggs in one basket. Whereas with the Aquarius, nobody was that hyped for it to begin with, not even Mattel. To put it bluntly, the Aquarius was just a side project for them, far down the list of priorities compared to their toy sales. When the Aquarius failed, Mattel was able to cut their losses and just say, "Oops, our bad," and quietly canceled it just 4 months after release. But why did the Aquarius fail? There were a lot of reasons, but in my opinion, it all boils down to one thing: timing. It's clear that Mattel was getting into the computer industry, not because they had a burning passion for it, but just because, well, that's what everyone else is doing. This bandwagoning and apathetic method of joining the industry is what ultimately doomed the project. If Mattel had cared more, they could have gotten a computer out much earlier than 1983. The Intellivision was released in 1979, when Atari had already demonstrated how to transition to computers with the Atari 400 and 800. Mattel could have easily released a computer based on the Intellivision as early as 1980. It's worth noting that Mattel had from the get-go planned to offer an expansion for the Intellivision that transformed it into a computer, but the keyboard component was delayed and delayed and delayed and never received a widespread release, with very few ever making it to market. The point is, the Aquarius would have been so much better if it had been released in '81 or '82. By its release in '83, it was sandwiched in price and performance at $160, or about $414 today, between the Timex 1000 at $100 and the TI-99/4A and the VIC-20 at between $200 and $300. Though this was right at the verge of the TI-Commodore price war, which would drop both systems in price down into the $100 range, destroying the lower-end system sales. But just because the Aquarius failed doesn't mean it couldn't be a hidden gem of a system. Let's take a look at its specs. It had a Zilog Z80 CPU running at 3.5 MHz, 4 kilobytes of RAM expandable to 28K, 8 kilobytes of ROM, a 48-key rubber chiclet style keyboard that, although not great, was better than this. 320 by 192 graphics resolution, and a 40 by 24 character text mode, with one voice sound expandable to 4 voices, and Microsoft Basic. To me, the most contentious part of those specs is the 4K of RAM. Sure, on paper that's more than the 2K of RAM on the Timex 1000, but after everything's loaded in, you only have 1.7K free. That's not much at all. You can argue that the TI and the VIC-20 also had pitiful amounts of RAM, but both systems had a great support of cartridge games that added their own ROM, getting around RAM limitations. We'll cover the Aquarius software library a bit later, but a related RAM issue is how you expanded it. Due to the system using the cartridge port for RAM expansion, you can't expand the memory and play cartridge-based games at the same time, without an expansion box called the Mini Expander, which added game pads, an additional cartridge port for memory expansion, and the GIAY 38914 sound chip, which was the same one used in the Intellivision. The Aquarius had several other minor design flaws. For example, the cassette port is physically identical to a TRS-80's cassette port, which would allow Aquarius users the ability to buy the abundant TRS-80 cassette drives available at Radio Shack, but it has a different pinout, making it completely incompatible. So now it's time for that software. The Coleco Atom only ever had around 40 software titles published for it. Surely the Aquarius, with its backing from Mattel, who had plenty of experience making games for their own system, the Intellivision, would provide a good amount of support for it, but no. In fact, there's so few, I'm going to read all of them. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Treasures of Tarman, Astro Smash, Burger Time, Bump and Jump, Night Stalker, Reversi, Snafu, Tron Deadly Discs, Utopia, Chess, Lock and Chase, and Sea Battle. That's a massive 12 games, which, if I'm not wrong, were all already available for the Intellivision. Yikes. Our system was picked up on eBay for just $60 for the system, keyboard overlay, tape drive, and switch box. On the front of our very dirty system, you'll see the very blue keys, logo, and power light. On the right side is the extremely cheap power switch, but at least it has one. On the back is the cartridge port, printer port, tape port, channel selector, TV out, and the integrated power supply cable. Now for the ratings. Rarity gets a 2 out of 5. This system was only produced for 4 months, but demand is shockingly low. Price gets a 5 out of 5. I've bought single video games for more than the price of this system. Aesthetics get a 2 out of 5. The color palette is nice with the blue keys, but overall, in my opinion, it's pretty ugly. Software gets a 5 out of 5. That massive library of 12 games is so great that oh, my bad. My script says -5. Ease of repair gets a 1. Good luck finding parts for this thing. Also, the power supply is wired into the back of the system, which is never a good idea. Thanks for watching this video on the Mattel Aquarius. Make sure to check out our video on the Coleco Atom. We did talk a lot about that system in this episode. Of course, make sure to subscribe and like this video, hit the bell for notifications, and please join us on our Discord to talk about your experiences with this system, or you can join us in our Facebook group. And if you'd like to support the show financially, we have Patreon, Yeah, that's it. We've got a Patreon. You should check it out. And I'll see you guys next time.